In this video, I'm going to share how pressure is able to take the elements of oxygen and carbon dioxide and move them in and out of a red blood cell. This here is an oxygen molecule. It's going from a red blood cell to a tissue cell, and all the tissue cells, they have to have oxygen or they die very quickly. So we go from the lungs where the air is brought in, and the oxygen will go from the lungs into the capillaries, and that's where the oxygen transport takes place. So here we'll take a look at the alveolar sacs. When the blood is going through these tiny little capillaries, as it's going, the pressure is different into both of those areas, and so that oxygen is able to move freely. As you see here, it's going from the capillary into the red blood cells, so we can see that the red blood cells coming in don't have any oxygen. As they go out, they're red and they have oxygen ready to go out for the rest of the body. As the red blood cells leave the lungs and they go out into the body, they go into these capillaries where the oxygen leaves the red blood cell and enters into the tissue. And this is all done by pressure. Now, in order for diffusion to work properly, there has to be pressure. So we're going to put, this will stand for pressure. So this is called partial pressure. Now, when we breathe in, the partial pressure from the outside is going to be greater on this side. So PO2 on this side will be greater than red blood cells. So what's going to happen is, since there's a negative PO2 on this side, we'll just say a negative, it's not technically negative, it's just lesser than this, the pressure of oxygen is going to push the oxygen into the red blood cell. And then with carbon dioxide, it's the same thing. There's less carbon dioxide over here, so with the partial pressure of carbon dioxide will be PCO2. And there's less in the alveoli. So there's more partial pressure of CO2 in the red blood cells, so this will go right over here into the alveoli, so we'll just switch each way. So just like with the alveoli, with the tissue, this will represent tissue, and this is our red blood cell, it's switched. When we move our muscles and our muscles are flexed and extended, they use up that oxygen. The waste product is CO2, and so there's more of pressure on the tissue side, and it pushes it into the red blood cell. And the same thing with the oxygen. As the red blood cell is moving through the capillary, the oxygen that is higher on this side will move right into the tissue because there's less oxygen. And so it's the same thing. Once there's pressure, it'll go either way. When there's more pressure on one side, it'll push it to the other. When there's less pressure, it'll push it the other way. So with this picture, it kind of explains everything I've already talked about. When we look at the inspired air on the top left, we see the PO2 that's 160 and the PCO2 at 0.3. So that's just the air that we're breathing in. And so you can see that the PO2 is much higher than the PO2 that's coming in from blood, that's coming from the pulmonary artery. So straight from the heart into the lungs, into the alveolar sac right there in the middle. The PO2 is 40 in the blood, and then in the air is 160. So that's where that pressure will hit, and then the oxygen will be able to switch right through that capillary. And it's the same thing with the expired air. As you can see with the arrows, they're moving in. So I hope that this kind of explains how pressure helps carbon dioxide and oxygen move in and out of a red blood cell.